Hello and welcome. I am indeed grateful to bring the work of Bernard Suriot to our gallery, the first stop in an 8-city tour. I'm Richard Stewart. Mr. Suriot, who is Spanish by birth, has lived in New York for many years. I first saw his work at a New York gallery about 2 years ago at the insistence of Carl Hammond. I thought it very exceptional. And of course, I was quite taken aback that his work was unfamiliar to me. Though I'm sure you're all aware that until recently, the works of monochrome artists have received far more acclaim in America. But that is changing. Mr. Suriot's work is sometimes grouped with the so-called radical painting. I don't think Suriot would agree. Monochrome art has been said to delineate the least information and yet offers the most sensation of any painting and is anything but sameness. Though our eyes might perceive a million shades of red, each different, language does not allow us to differentiate. We call it red. To call it red is an inadequate assumption, as poor an observation as to think of the people around us as monotonous and without their joys and passions and sins. If a stranger crosses us in the street, we can see beyond their sombre expression. Perhaps you'll find tonight amusing. Some patron will stand here with a glass of red wine in one hand, his other hand in his trouser pocket jingling his change, and he'll look at the paintings. Of course, he doesn't see them. He hasn't seen the first painting all evening. No, he's merely posing, momentarily poised. He hesitates inanely an acceptable length of time before moving on from frame to frame to frame. He feels inadequate because he doesn't understand, but it's all right. Years ago, he learned he could simply just appear interestingly appreciative. Comment agreeably as expected. Imitate an understanding. Then finally, when he's confident he's made a sufficient appearance and he's become irritated, angered that his money goes to support this, a red painting, he turns to his wife and whispers quietly but sternly he wants to leave. He wants the comfort and the familiarity of his home. Safe, isolated, insular, same. It's all red, he thinks. Nothing more. How can that be art? He can't see beyond the obvious. The singleness of colour, the sameness, the bland blurring of the countless faces rushing past us each day. We don't look. We don't bother. I mean, our lives are so full of our own joys and sorrows, passions and problems, that there's so little time for anything else. We pose, momentarily poised in life. The painting in itself is nothing. It only begins to allow us to understand something of ourselves if we want to look. We see people like these paintings and wish to think of them without the eloquence of passion, without meaning.
I asked Richard earlier today if anything had changed. We haven't had time to talk about last night.
I'm trying to be understanding.
It was months ago. We went out for dinner with friends and I invited a new colleague of mine from work. I wanted Richard to meet him.
They were friends from the start, and she started bringing home stories of things he'd said or done. Was she thinking if they weren't married? They were spending a lot of time together. Maybe it was completely innocent. I didn't know.
I was attracted to this man.
Catherine and I have always had that kind of relationship, and we like to talk about things.
I just didn't want it. I didn't want to think about it being anything more than just a good friendship.
And I understand that being married to her doesn't mean I can be everything to her. Be her total world.
I have a wonderful life. My life, mine and Richard's. Our life together is about anything but him.
He starts coming around the house to pick her up for work. She might pick him up. And then he starts to like a girl. So he came round asking for advice. What wine? What flowers? What cologne? Suit or no suit, what restaurant, the two go back and forth. He likes a short skirt, and the next day Catherine wears a short skirt to work. That evening they go out for drinks, and he knows what wine she likes and what cologne to wear. You can see what I was thinking.
So many couples just hide so much from one another. The way we think and feel. Little secrets. Desires. I don't like that.
A couple of years ago I was working with an intern on an installation. She was a young and beautiful girl, and we were working together, and I was absolutely infatuated with her.
I knew it was there between us. I didn't want to think about it. We're together a lot, we work together.
She was so different from Catherine. I just liked being around her. Nothing ever happened. I never told Catherine.
Last week Richard asked about him, about the two of us. Richard asked if we'd ever slept together. My God, where did that come from? I hadn't. But Richard asked if I wanted that.
I could see the same thing happening with Catherine and this man. I wanted to clear the air.
And then all that night I just kept asking myself if I wanted to be with him.
Do you think that when people meet, they think, wouldn't it be great to have a sick day from marriage? You find you've fallen in love again and discover once more feelings are fresh, arousing, and you can tell them all about yourself once more, your hopes, your dreams, and you could escape from the failures, the responsibilities.
Has Richard ever met anyone? Has he had these feelings? Did he feel like he couldn't talk to me about something like this? I'd want him to.
If we weren't married, we'd be friends. I mean, we were before we started dating. That's what attracted me to her. We could talk about anything. If we weren't married, she could tell me all about how wonderful it was falling in love with this guy, and I'd listen. I'd be a friend. I wanted her to know that I could understand how she felt.
Richard said he understood.
Only what you can confide to a friend isn't so easy to a husband.
And then all this week it's been emotional for me. Like yesterday I was stood in the hallway at work and I cried. I have no idea why. A friend of mine, Deborah, her and her husband have been trying for years to have a baby. She's 2 months pregnant. They're so happy. And I've been busy working on an important project in my career. That's going so well. And then, standing there in the hallway, my friend came up to me and asked if I wanted a cup of coffee. And I looked at him and I said, yes.
Yesterday I called Catherine and there was something in her voice.
Last night we went out with friends from the office for drinks, my friend and I. Our knees were touching under the table. All night our knees were touching. Of course, nobody else could know our thoughts. And then finally some people got up to leave and we walked out with them.
When I called her yesterday at work, maybe there was something in her voice, I don't know, but I knew.
I asked Richard if he wanted to join us.
I called her and said I'd be working late setting up the opening.
We left and went to his apartment.
When I got home, she was still out.
It was awkward at first. We listened to music, something contemporary. Later, jazz. There wasn't a feeling that anything had to be rushed. I'm glad of that. We just talked and...
I can understand. You know, I knew that with the girl, we could be lovers, and I could leave her and come home, and it wouldn't have affected Catherine and I. Maybe a bit of guilt. Maybe not.
I wanted to be with him.
We do things, good things, bad things, but the world doesn't come to an end.
We worry so much about what people think of us, about trying to be a certain way, the way that we think people expect us to be. That's not what life is.
Emotions are a crazy thing.
Everything about life is an attempt at order. The order of law, traffic order, church order, just rules and regulations. Only running crazy through all of this is passion. That's what life's about. I don't want to talk to Richard about any of this. I just want him to understand.
Call them red, green, blue, whatever. They are anything but monochromatic. And they are insignificant.